We have breaking news. The D.C. Court of Appeals has ruled unanimously that former President Trump is not immune from criminal prosecution in the federal election interference case. The former president's attorneys argued that prosecuting a former president would open a Pandora's box from which the nation may never recover, claiming former presidents could be charged for acts like authorizing drone strikes abroad.
In a move that's sending shockwaves through Washington, a federal court has reportedly rejected what may have been Trump's final legal defense in a series of high-profile cases. Sources familiar with the matter reveal that the decision came after judges reviewed a confidential memo outlining Trump's last-ditch arguments, a memo that was never meant to be public. Yet somehow, fragments of it have leaked, and the contents are raising alarm bells across the political and legal landscape. According to experts, this memo contained arguments designed to assert broad immunity, challenge evidence admissibility, and protect key communications from scrutiny. But the court's reaction was swift and unanimous. No leniency, no exceptions, no hesitation. Judges reportedly described the claims as untenable and contradictory to established law, signaling that the former president may have exhausted critical avenues of defense. For your audience, the implications are staggering. A court's rejection of a final defense doesn't just affect one case. It reshapes the legal playing field for all ongoing investigations, from federal election interference inquiries to classified documents probes. The memo's contents, though only partially disclosed, suggest Trump's team miscalculated the strength of the evidence against him and overestimated the protections they thought existed. Inside legal circles, this leak is being treated as a warning shot. Once internal judicial communications show skepticism or outright dismissal of a defense, the momentum shifts dramatically in favor of prosecutors. For Trump, every page of that memo represents a mounting challenge, and the exposure of even parts of it could intensify public scrutiny, weaken political allies, and accelerate courtroom timelines. The leaked memo at the center of this judicial shock reportedly contained strategic arguments that were ambitious but legally fragile, attempting to shield Trump from multiple angles. Sources familiar with the document say it included claims of absolute executive immunity, assertions that certain actions fell under presidential discretion, and attempts to disqualify key evidence based on procedural technicalities. Legal analysts are calling the memo highly unusual in both tone and content. Rather than a carefully measured defense, the document allegedly presented sweeping arguments that contradicted established precedent, leaving judges with little choice but to swiftly reject its claims. One insider described the language as almost audacious, suggesting that Trump's legal team was taking unprecedented risks to prevent exposure in ongoing investigations. For your audience, the stakes here are crucial. The memo reportedly referenced communications, meetings, and internal deliberations that directly touch on evidence already under scrutiny in federal and state cases. Judges reviewing the document are said to have highlighted inconsistencies and noted that some arguments appeared to ignore clear legal obligations, sending a strong message that no defense, however high profile, could bypass accountability. This leak also exposes the internal dynamics of the court. While judicial memos are typically confidential, the partial exposure suggests intense pressure, internal deliberation, and friction over how to handle unprecedented legal claims from a former president. The judge's unanimous rejection signals that the legal system is resolute and methodical, even in politically explosive cases. The court's rejection of Trump's final defense is more than a single legal defeat. It's a catalyst that reshapes his entire approach across multiple investigations. Sources close to Trump's legal team indicate that this ruling eliminates critical defenses that were central to delaying or dismissing cases, forcing the former president into a more vulnerable position in federal and state courts alike. For your audience, the implications are stark. By losing the memo-based argument, Trump's team is left with fewer options to challenge evidence, postpone trials, or limit witness testimony. Experts suggest this could accelerate proceedings in cases involving election interference, classified documents, and financial investigations, compressing timelines and reducing flexibility for legal maneuvers that historically buy time. Moreover, the ruling may influence witness behavior and prosecutorial strategy. With one of Trump's last formal arguments dismissed publicly, prosecutors gain leverage in negotiations and can pressure associates to cooperate, citing the court's explicit rejection of immunity or privilege claims. This could produce a domino effect, with insiders reevaluating the risks of non-cooperation and potentially providing evidence that strengthens the government's case. Politically, the fallout is equally significant. The court's rejection signals to party leaders, donors, and media observers that Trump's legal challenges are serious, imminent, and increasingly difficult to mitigate, which could impact support, messaging, and campaign operations. Analysts predict that even loyal allies may begin calculating distances and contingencies, all while Trump navigates both public perception and legal realities. The leaked memo doesn't just challenge Trump's legal arguments. It reportedly names high-profile figures, allies, and intermediaries, offering prosecutors a roadmap of influence and potential coordination. Sources familiar with the document say it references meetings, calls, and communications with political operatives, campaign officials, and possibly external consultants, many of whom are already under scrutiny in related investigations. For your audience, the key point is clear. The memo doesn't exist in isolation. Each reference could corroborate witness testimony, link strategic decisions to Trump personally, and expand the scope of ongoing probes. Experts warn that these connections, once verified, could force reluctant witnesses to testify or provide prosecutors with leverage to secure plea agreements, creating a cascading effect that strengthens multiple cases simultaneously. Legal insiders note that the memo's references appear strategically significant rather than incidental, showing Trump's direct awareness or participation in decisions that courts may view as obstruction or interference. Even partial disclosure of names, dates, and interactions could reshape public perception and internal party calculations, as allies weigh loyalty against legal risk. Politically, these revelations are a double-edged sword. While some allies may publicly support Trump, the existence of documented connections could incentivize behind-the-scenes distancing, as leaders calculate the risks to their own positions and reputations. The courts, meanwhile, gain a clearer picture of how directives and communications flowed, giving weight to claims that Trump's actions were coordinated rather than isolated missteps. One of the most explosive aspects of the leaked memo is its timeline of events, which appears to directly contradict statements previously made by Trump and key witnesses. Sources say the document details meetings, communications, and decisions that conflict with earlier affidavits, testimony, and public statements, raising serious questions about credibility, intent, and transparency. Legal analysts describe this as a timeline trap. When a court can compare documented memos with prior testimony, discrepancies become powerful evidence that may suggest deliberate misrepresentation or concealment. Even minor differences in dates or content could be used to challenge the reliability of defenses or witnesses, especially if they indicate that Trump or his aides knowingly attempted to mislead investigators or avoid scrutiny. For your audience, the key takeaway is stark. These contradictions aren't academic. They could accelerate proceedings and strengthen prosecutorial leverage. If the court determines that prior statements are inconsistent with documented evidence, it may limit opportunities for legal delays and amplify the pressure on Trump's legal team to produce alternative narratives or explanations. The memo reportedly references critical periods related to election interference, document handling, and key meetings with top aides, making the discrepancies particularly significant. Experts warn that even partial validation of these contradictions could shift the balance in multiple ongoing investigations, potentially affecting federal and state cases simultaneously. Politically, the revelation of timeline inconsistencies also has ripple effects. Allies and party operatives may begin reassessing support, while media scrutiny intensifies, highlighting gaps between public statements and documented evidence. This convergence of legal and political pressure signals that Trump is facing unprecedented scrutiny on both fronts. The leaked memo isn't just a courtroom bombshell. It's a tool that federal prosecutors can use to tighten the noose around Trump and his inner circle. Legal experts suggest that once the memo is validated, it gives investigators a documented record to cross-check witness testimony, corroborate timelines, and identify inconsistencies, which is invaluable in high-stakes federal cases. For your audience, the significance is simple. Every detail in the memo becomes leverage. If associates or aides are aware that documented communications contradict prior statements, prosecutors can pressure them to cooperate or risk perjury charges. This can trigger a domino effect, with mid-level staff providing testimony that reaches higher-ranking figures, potentially including Trump himself. Additionally, the memo reportedly references key strategic decisions, interactions with campaign officials, and even guidance on handling sensitive investigations. Prosecutors can use these references to pin responsibility, demonstrate knowledge, and show intent, all of which are essential for criminal cases involving obstruction, conspiracy, or election interference. The impact on trial strategy is profound. With the memo as a roadmap, prosecutors can prioritize witness interviews, structure cross-examinations, and anticipate defense arguments, making it harder for Trump's legal team to create confusion or delay proceedings. Experts warn that timelines, communications, and internal memos like this are often the smoking gun in politically sensitive cases. Politically, the leverage extends beyond the courtroom. Allies, donors, and media observers may begin recalibrating support based on the perceived strength of prosecutorial evidence, further isolating Trump and putting him on the defensive both legally and publicly. The leak of Trump's secret memo is already sending ripples through media outlets, political circles, and public discourse. Even before full disclosure, news reports highlight the unprecedented nature of a former president's internal legal strategy being partially exposed, creating headlines that dominate both cable news and digital platforms. For your audience, the impact is immediate. Public perception now operates alongside the legal process. The memo suggests that Trump's last defense was fragile and internally scrutinized, which could erode confidence among supporters who previously viewed his legal maneuvers as unassailable. Analysts note that when internal court communications surface, even partially, it signals vulnerability and challenges the narrative of control. Politically, the ramifications are intense. Republican strategists and party leaders are reportedly watching closely, evaluating how continued association with Trump may affect electoral prospects and public credibility. Donors, campaign operatives, and allied officials may begin distancing themselves, creating cracks in the previously solid support base. The leak doesn't just shape public discourse, it recalibrates the political landscape in real time. Media coverage amplifies the pressure. Headlines emphasize judicial skepticism, contradictions in Trump's claims, and the unprecedented nature of the exposure, ensuring that every move he makes is scrutinized and framed within a legal and political context. For federal prosecutors, this media attention can serve as indirect reinforcement, as public awareness raises the stakes and may influence the behavior of witnesses or insiders. In essence, the memo leak acts as a dual lever, legally strengthening the case against Trump while politically and publicly reshaping perception, forcing him into a defensive posture across every front. The leaked memo isn't just a legal headache, it's a pressure cooker for Trump's inner circle. Sources suggest that senior aides, former campaign officials, and key political allies are now scrambling to assess their exposure and adjust strategies, knowing that prosecutors could leverage the memo against anyone involved in coordinating or advising Trump. For your audience, the stakes are clear. These leaks force allies to choose between loyalty and self-preservation. Some aides are reportedly reviewing their prior statements, communications, and schedules to ensure alignment with the memo's contents, while others may be quietly preparing to cooperate with federal or state investigators to mitigate potential legal consequences. Even small discrepancies could carry serious ramifications, increasing the pressure within Trump's camp. Political strategists note that the fallout extends beyond legal exposure. Allies who previously projected unwavering support now face a dilemma: continue defending Trump publicly or quietly distance themselves, fearing that association with a failing legal strategy could damage their reputations, future appointments, or electoral prospects. The memo leak effectively shifts internal dynamics, as trust and loyalty are weighed against legal vulnerability. Additionally, some insiders are reportedly frustrated or alarmed by the exposure itself, questioning whether Trump's handling of sensitive communications has unnecessarily endangered his circle. This internal tension compounds public perception, as leaks, media coverage, and speculation fuel uncertainty about the cohesion and stability of Trump's network. In short, the memo leak isn't just evidence, it's a strategic pivot point, applying simultaneous pressure on Trump legally, politically, and within his own team. The next section will explore how this legal exposure could influence upcoming court proceedings and potential trials, highlighting the ticking clock on multiple fronts. The leak of Trump's internal memo is already reshaping the courtroom landscape. Legal analysts say that once judges and prosecutors incorporate the document into case assessments, it could tighten schedules, limit delays, and reduce the flexibility of defense strategies. Essentially, Trump's legal team may find fewer opportunities to push back or stall proceedings, and every day lost to internal deliberation increases pressure on multiple fronts. For your audience, the immediate concern is the acceleration of timelines. The memo provides prosecutors with a roadmap to target key witnesses, verify communications, and streamline cross-examinations, making trials more efficient and less vulnerable to procedural loopholes. Experts warn that this could bring critical court dates forward and force the defense to react under intense scrutiny, amplifying stress and strategic risk. The impact goes beyond timing. By contradicting prior statements or defense narratives, the memo can strengthen prosecutorial claims of knowledge, intent, and coordination, particularly in cases involving election interference, document handling, and obstruction of justice. Judges may now treat certain defenses as untenable or irrelevant, shaping rulings that leave Trump with limited legal recourse. Politically, accelerated proceedings create a high-pressure environment for allies, campaign staff, and supporters, who must navigate public and legal scrutiny simultaneously. Media coverage intensifies as the public watches courtroom developments unfold, magnifying reputational stakes. In essence, the leaked memo doesn't just expose vulnerabilities, it dictates momentum in multiple cases simultaneously, influencing strategy, witness behavior, and judicial action. As a result, Trump faces not only legal jeopardy, but a compressed window to respond effectively. With the leaked memo now public, the next chapter in Trump's legal and political saga is unfolding at an unprecedented pace. Federal prosecutors, armed with the internal document, are reportedly recalibrating case strategies, prioritizing witnesses, and reviewing evidence with the memo as a guide. Every piece of communication it references could become a critical lever in court, increasing the likelihood of convictions or plea agreements. For your audience, the stakes are monumental. If the memo's contents are fully verified and corroborated, Trump may face compressed trial timelines, reduced avenues for defense, and heightened exposure across multiple jurisdictions. In real terms, this could accelerate proceedings in federal and state cases, making delays, historically used to manage political optics, much harder to achieve. Politically, the memo could reshape Trump's influence within the Republican Party. Allies, donors, and media operatives will weigh continued support against legal risk, potentially fracturing the coalition that has propelled him to prominence. For campaign strategy, this means higher scrutiny, more internal tension, and public perception that he is under escalating legal pressure. The memo also raises long-term consequences for governance and precedent. Courts handling these cases are setting benchmarks for accountability and transparency, signaling that even the highest-profile political figures cannot rely on immunity or media influence to override legal responsibility. This may change the landscape of presidential accountability for decades, sending a clear message about the consequences of circumventing law and procedure. Ultimately, this leaked memo is more than a legal document. It is a turning point. It could dictate Trump's legal outcomes, political viability, and historical legacy. For viewers, staying informed isn't just about following headlines. It's about understanding how a single document may redefine power, accountability, and justice at the highest levels of American politics.